Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto is the reincarnation of Hashirama and can remember his past life. The Yondaime Hokage unknowingly makes a change during the sealing, the consequences of which are unimaginable for both Naruto and Konoha. What do these consequences mean for Naruto? Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 12. We may only have a non-aggression pact with Kyumo, but we have to deepen that alliance. Sarutobi-sensei laid the groundwork well. We need to build on it as fast as possible, Tsunade said to the assembled council. They were all here. All the great clans of Konoha were represented by their respective clan heads, save for the Uchiha. The aftermath of the invasion weighed heavily on the upper hierarchy of Konoha, causing them to assemble and take decisions on the village's future. Kyumo is hardly trustworthy, Hokage-sama. They are traitorous dogs who break their word at the drop of a hat. We have seen this for ourselves. What guarantee do we have that the Raikage won't dishonour our agreement the same way he did when he authorized Hinata's kidnapping? Hayashi asked in a cold voice. Some shinobi in the room were nodding their heads, mostly Hyuga Jounin. It had affected the Hyuga clan deeply when they were forced to sacrifice the branch family head to preserve the Byakugan's secrets. Tsunade looked at Naruto, who stood up and faced Hayashi calmly. You speak the truth, Hayashi-san. They may very well try to dishonour our treaty when it conveniences them. Ninja have never been ones for honor, have we? We protect what is ours at all costs, even if everything else burns. Mito watched with rapt attention as her husband began to gather the support of the clans. Hashirama was always very charismatic, in speech and action. The opposite of Madara, she thought. Madara was forceful, convincing his subordinates with his awe-inspiring strength. But Hashirama. But then Hayashi began to reply. There is one thing, Hayashi-san, which you have forgotten. The Raikage will have heard the truth of Naruto's actions on the battlefield. To beat Oniki and his army simultaneously is no mean feat, as you well know. He will be afraid to oppose Konoha with what strength Kyumo has now. I assume that is why the non-aggression pact was inked to last for just 3 years, enough time for Kyumo to gather its strength. Only when Kyumo is at her full might will the Raikage try to lean out of his neutrality, finished Tsunade. What if he is favoring Akatsuki all this time, and simply keeping Konoha out of the picture till he is ready? Yamanaka Inoichi questioned with a somber face. Unlikely. As far as we know, Akatsuki have no foothold in Kyumo. Jiraiya-sama, to your knowledge, have Kyumo hired Akatsuki even once? Kakashi asked. No. They have never hired Akatsuki in any capacity. We need have no worry about them turning to Akatsuki. But that begs the question. Why the 3 years of non-aggression? And if Tsunade is right, why would they need to gather strength so fast? Jiraiya pondered. The council wondered silently at this question. They would need to profile the Raikage perfectly if they were to take any decision on the Kyumo alliance. Naruto thought deeply. He had been the very first Kage, and he tried to put himself in the Raikage's shoes. If he were Kyumo's Kage, what would he do? The answer came to him naturally, decades of leading Konoha coming to the forefront. I think. Naruto said loudly, causing the council members to look his way. I think the Raikage does not want to make any alliances under threat of another nation's power. Konoha is very strong right now, and Kyumo frantically making alliances would reek of weakness. That would be very bad for their business. Making a non-aggression pact, however, undermines them in no way, especially when Hiruzen was the one that initiated it. Tsunade's face lit up in comprehension. Of course, only after gathering power as best as he can will the Raikage be ready for an alliance. He won't compromise Kyumo's business at any cost. Allying out of fear with our village will lose them their clientele. All fine and good, but how do we get Kyumo to give members to the Akatsuki response team? That is all we really want out of this alliance. Exclaimed Chauza. Tsunade's face calmed as she considered the problem. We will have to send our shinobi to convince him of the threat, and form the team. I think it best if Naruto goes. The Raikage is aware of his reputation, and he will take the proposal seriously. Kyumo respects strength much like the Uchiha. Naruto nodded in assent. He would do everything in his power to keep the village safe during his extended absence. Kushina, you must depart to Kiri to negotiate our proposal. The Yondaime Hokage is a friend of Konoha and to you, and it seems we can count on her succor. What do you say? I agree, Hokage-sama. Mei is a longtime comrade of mine, and she will give fair hearing to any proposal of Konoha. I will leave within 3 days, said the beautiful Uzumaki woman. Tsunade nodded with satisfaction, as did the elders and the rest of the council. Naruto and Mito stiffened. From the Uchiha compound emanated a chakra which was unpleasantly familiar. The couple could sense the chakra clearly, it was cold and blazed with hatred and grief. Mangekyo Sharinan! Roared Kurama in the vaults of Naruto's mind. Sasuke was suffering, and his Sharinan was reflecting it. Naruto and Mito glanced at each other even as they felt the chakra from the Mangekyo Sharinan increasing rapidly. It reeked of hatred. Of course, its malice was not even close to Madara's, but it was alarming considering the fact that it was Sasuke who was emitting that chakra. He must have found out the truth about Itachi. But how? I kept sensing him at the Nakano shrine all this while. Not good, he should never have gotten the truth this soon and by himself. I always intended for Itachi to tell him the unvarnished truth. Hokage-sama, an urgent matter has come to our attention. Please excuse us, requested Naruto. What dash? Questioned Kushina. Sasuke's chakra is increasing. At this rate, he may release his anger on the village. I need to leave, fast. Ka-san, finish the discussion of your mission to Kiri. It is important, whispered Naruto to Kushina. If Sasuke was too far gone, he might even attack Kushina. He will never forgive himself if he does that, thought Naruto. He would let his mother meet Sasuke only after he was calmer and willing to listen. He knew all too well the mad rage of a Mangekyo Sharinan user. Nothing would reach them except force. The entire assembly stared at this odd interruption, as did Tsunade. But when she saw the urgency in her grandfather's eyes, she knew he was not playing. It truly was important. She nodded her assent. Whatever it is, grandfather will take care of it. I must concentrate on Kyumo and the village council. Naruto and Mito disappeared without a sound. Sasuke's anger spiked and the black fires of Amaterasu burnt the table into ashes, leaving the documents upon it intact. His Mangekyo Sharinan caused him to leak chakra, a manifestation of his chaotically churning emotions. Brother, why did you give up so much for the village? Why? You were used cruelly by both Uchiha and Konoha, and yet you chose Konoha in the end. What is so special about Konoha that you saw fit to massacre our entire clan for it? Mother, father. Sasuke's eyes were shedding tears of blood, his face contorted in grief. He could not grasp the truth. The Uchiha were all dead, dead because of the politics of an indifferent village. He lived alone, memories of his tortures and his parents' bodies assaulting him every night. Only it was not torture, was it? You chose to spare me in your extermination. You gave me the will to awaken the Sharinan, even if it is hatred. Itachi, his beloved brother, had taken on the burdens of 2 selfish groups of shinobi and suffered for it. From what he read in the records, the Uchiha were planning a coup, intending to overthrow the Hokage and the entire administration. Brother, you should have taken me with you. This village does not deserve you and neither did our clan. Fools. They had to go and tear our family apart. A fresh batch of tears made their way down his cheeks as he thought of the happy memories he had of Itachi. His rage grew as he thought of what had been taken from him. They had been inseparable. He had adored Itachi more than anyone else. His older brother had been his role model, his idol, the one he wanted to impress above all others. The one who mattered to him above all others. His eyes blazed red as he thought of what had become of him. For years, he had thrown his complete hatred at Itachi. But it turned out now that Itachi was merely acting in the interests of Konoha. Konoha. It always came down to Konoha. They were the ones who ordered the extermination of my clan. The records say Itachi was working for Root, a division of the Umbu headed by Danzo Shimura. He walked out of the shrine, eyes permanently at Mangekyo Sharinan. His tears had ceased, leaving his anger to smolder like lava. There was one group of shinobi who oversaw all the decisions made by the Hokage. The Council of Three, consisting of Mito Kato Homura, Yondaime Koharu, and Shimura Danzo. The Sandaime is dead. The only ones who know the full truth of the massacre are the Council of Three. I will tear my answers from them, they who dared to massacre the Uchiha. They were the ones who saw fit to make me and my brother orphans. He traveled through the village in a series of shunshin, barely keeping his mind together in his grief and rage. I will make them pay, brother. For what they did to you and me, I will make them all pay. One day, I will seek out everyone responsible for the massacre, and massacre them. This is my vow as a shinobi and Uchiha. Naruto and Mito followed the trail of Sasuke's chaotic chakra towards the south quarter of the village, a ways away from the Uchiha compound. Sadness wormed into his heart as he and Mito fled towards Sasuke. The young Uchiha was always meant to hear the truth from Itachi. Who knows what twisted facts had been given to Sasuke? Naruto winced as he felt an increase in Sasuke's grief. It reminded him painfully of when he had lost Itama. Sasuke is already at the quarters of Homura. I believe he wishes to get the truth from one of the three. They won't stand for such insubordination, Hashirama. Sasuke will be declared Nukenin if he attacks them. Itachi's work will all be for naught if that happens, exclaimed Mito worriedly. Naruto flared his senses and saw that Sasuke had stopped at the entrance to Homura's house. Unfortunately, the Council of Three were absent from the day's meeting. Homura would be at his place of residence, vulnerable to Sasuke's anger. We need to find him and talk him down immediately. If Sasuke experiences any more grief, if his love is destroyed completely, then a new Madara will be born, finished Mito. She took Naruto's hand, and the two disappeared towards Sasuke's location. The afternoon wind blew in the streets of Konoha. The village was relatively empty, the civilians taking to their houses in the wake of a hot summer. Three masked Umbu appeared in front of Sasuke as he stood before the opulent residence of Mito Kato Homura. His face was schooled into impassiveness, not betraying the smoldering anger within. I wish to see Homura-sama. It is important. The Umbu in the center stepped forward, keeping his mask on. He had a hand upon his sword, as did his colleagues. The three exuded a sense of danger, their experience and power apparent to Sasuke's eyes. Homura-sama is unavailable, Uchiha-san. If there is a message, I will be glad to deliver it to the counselor. Is there anything you want to tell him? Sasuke's eyes burned red. I wish to see him, now. Calm yourself, Sasuke-san. Uchinin makes no demands of Umbu. Homura-sama is far above your station and deserves your respect. How dare you come before us and demand to see him so brashly? Sasuke's face went blank. You think yourself above me? Don't delude yourself. As the last Uchiha, I demand audience with Homura. He asked coldly. You are in no position to make demands of your superiors. Withdraw now, and your transgression will be forgotten. The clans are beneath the Council of Three, Uchiha Sasuke, said another Umbu. Sasuke's eyes widened at his audacity. After what he had read, this was the last thing to be said to him. Beneath them, are we? He whispered dangerously. Rage and despair obliterated all reason, the desire for revenge consuming everything in him. Amaterasu! The arrogant Umbu screamed as he was roasted alive by the unquenchable heavenly flames. He swept his eyes over them, and the other two Umbu were aflame as well. Kicking aside the convulsing and burning trio, he made his way towards his target. Time to deal with Homura. If he was indeed the one who gave the order for the massacre, Sasuke would make him suffer. Only then would he move on to Koharu and Danzo. He scowled as Amaterasu burnt another hostile Umbu to ash floating in the wind. I will cleanse corruption from this village with the same eyes you gave me, Nisan. Stop, Sasuke. Sasuke turned and saw an unwelcome sight. His friend Naruto and the woman Mito were standing side by side. His flames were gone completely, leaving two badly burnt Umbu and one moderately burnt. The Umbu in relatively good condition disappeared. Sasuke spat blood as he looked down at his opponent's katana buried in his gut. He coughed blood as Mito appeared to support him. He could see the compassion and sadness in her lovely face as she staunched the flow of blood from his wound. Enough. said Naruto firmly as he finished healing the two umbu. Thick vines sprouted from the ground, restraining the umbu as he moved in for a finishing blow against Sasuke. Sasuke got up with difficulty and began staggering towards Homura's location again. Naruto appeared in front of him and laid two fingers on his neck. He saw Naruto looking at him sadly as the blackness consumed him. He gave into it willingly as it washed away his suffering. The meeting was over, and Tsunade was informed of Sasuke's mental upheaval. Kakashi and Jiraiya had joined Mito, Kushina, Tsunade, and Naruto in waiting for Sasuke to wake. How was it possible for Sasuke to get the truth? S-class secrets are concealed in a room with highest ceiling security, and require both the Hokage's authorization and the council's to access. No one can possibly penetrate the security of that room. Unless. Trailed of Kushina, a contemplative look upon her face. Unless the perpetrator knows of those secrets. The only other way to know of an S-class secret is to be part of the event that spawned those secrets. Itachi definitely did not put those documents there, which means that someone else did. The only other one involved in the massacre was the imposter. The imposter was the one who put those documents there, said Naruto, looking around seriously at the gathered shinobi. Imposter? Questioned Jiraiya. The others looked interested. 14 years ago, for some reason, there was an Uchiha who awoke the bloodlust of the Kyuubi with his Mangekyo Sharingan. He was the cause of the Kyuubi attack. My father defeated both him and the Kyuubi in combat, causing him to flee in defeat, said Naruto, pausing to gather his thoughts. Whom did he impersonate? Questioned Tsunade with trepidation. Uchiha Madara. Answered Naruto grimly. The others gasped, shocked at the answer. Madara's very name led to death and destruction, such was the terror he inspired in the hearts of shinobi the world over. Jiraiya questioned him with doubt marring his face. Is it possible that he really is Madara? Impossible. I killed Madara in our final battle. This man is an imposter, and Itachi told me that he was helped by the imposter to end the Uchiha clan during his final mission. This imposter is pulling strings from the shadows, even pain defers to him for some reason. Ero Sennin, can you give me the document Sasuke was reading? Naruto requested. Jiraiya handed over Madara's letter to Naruto, who read it in a few seconds. He handed over the letter to Mito with a shocked face. Mito's expression became shocked as well. What happened, Naruto? Questioned Kushina worriedly. This handwriting is definitely Madara's. The imposter should definitely have access to Madara's writings. My old friend invented some extremely dangerous techniques and in the wrong hands, they can be very damaging, said Naruto. Hashirama is right. We have to oppose Akatsuki with the assumption that this imposter knows the Uchiha Kinjutsu. That is not good at all. Pondered Mito with a deep frown on her face. Why did he put those writings and truths there anyway? Asked Jiraiya. He meant to unbalance Sasuke, I think. A Mangekyo user was rare even in the old days. Now, they are precious. It was to engender hatred against Konoha and Sasuke so he could be manipulated into Akatsuki's side. He obviously did not count on me influencing Sasuke. The will of fire is too strong in him, now said Naruto with satisfaction. How can you say that, Ajisen? He attacked Homura at his own house. Exclaimed Tsunade. Yes, he did. But I could sense in him no hatred against Konoha as a whole. He rightly wanted to kill only those responsible for his clan's extinction. It is not feasible to our village, but from a shinobi's perspective you have to admit it right. Everyone fell silent at these words. It was a wonder that Sasuke had not turned his rage on the entirety of Konoha. It spoke volumes of the young man's moral fiber. A groan at the makeshift bed woke them up. Kushina had insisted firmly that they all be there to watch over Sasuke, and that Sasuke rest in the security of a sealed Hokage's chamber. They watched solemnly as Sasuke sat up groggily and opened his eyes. The moment he saw who he was facing, the anger on his face receded. A look of absolute despair stole across his face. Kushina, unable to bear her adopted son's suffering, rushed to him and hugged him tightly. Sasuke began to shed tears silently at this forgotten gesture of affection. The loss on his face deepened even more as he thought of his destroyed family and clan. Brother, he whispered brokenly. Kushina hugged him tighter, whispering soothing words to him. It's alright, Sasuke-kun. It's alright, she slowly released him from her embrace, looking at him tenderly. Sasuke looked at them all, noting their expressions. I only wanted answers from Homura, Hokage-sama. True answers. A manuscript, however authentic, cannot be fully trusted. As for the Umbu, I only wished to get past them. You know that you can't do that if you fail to attack with deadly force. Umbu are lethal. I understand, Sasuke. I am willing to overlook your actions this once, for Konoha itself is not blameless. Now, consider your answer carefully. You know the truth of Itachi's past dash. No, I don't blame all of Konoha. It was the actions of a select few that brought about our tragedy, and I blame only those few. And if my brother saw fit to sacrifice everything for Konoha, then who am I to trample upon his legacy? Asked Sasuke with grief written all over his face. There was no way he would risk the bonds he had made with Naruto, Kushina-san, and others in search of an empty revenge. Regret filled him at what he had almost lost in his vendetta against Homura. What? Tsunade could barely contain her surprise. That was an answer she truly did not expect. Naruto and Kushina looked proud, and Mito looked approving. Sasuke was maturing rapidly and thinking logically. You could have learned from your descendants, Madara. These two brothers are superior to you and Izuna in so many ways. Maybe even in power. Definitely in their thoughts and loyalty. I was foolish to completely believe the words in a piece of paper. It may fit the events, but the fact remains that writings can say anything. Only my brother knows what truly happened, Sasuke pondered. His rage was cooling down as he considered the facts. That is what I told you before, Sasuke-kun. The part about Itachi sacrificing the Uchiha to keep Konoha's peace is quite true. But the motivations behind the acts of the Uchiha clan go very deep. You must ask Itachi and him alone. Before you make decisions on information from some unknown third source, make sure that source is authentic. No source is more authentic than your brother, admonished Kushina gently. Sasuke considered, the resolve in his face mounting. I have to meet him. My mind won't be at peace till I hear the truth from my brother. I have to meet him and learn the truth from him, said Sasuke desperately. Naruto nodded. It was up to Sasuke to decide upon his next course of action, as this was entirely an Uchiha affair. All he could do was arm the young Uchiha with information. Listen carefully, Sasuke. Let me tell you of what truly happened during the Kyuubi attack dash. I heard everything about the imposter, Naruto. I was awake by then, you people did not notice me till I made the sound, said Sasuke. Mito and Naruto grinned. Kushina and Tsunade were looking at Sasuke with pride and amazement still coloring their faces, unable to believe the maturity with which Sasuke was handling the situation. This generation of Uchiha were extraordinary indeed. Itachi is part of a group called Akatsuki whose aims are hostile towards Konoha. Sasuke interrupted. You mean he is Konoha's spy? He joined that organization as a missing nin, did he not? He did. He took your mother's eyes, by the way. His eyes are now eternal. Sasuke seemed to be deep in thought. He finally lifted up his head to stare at the assembled shinobi in the room. I need to come to terms with this revelation and think on my future. Give me another 3 days. You have my word that Konoha is safe from me. Don't attack the council either, Sasuke. At least not yet. Danzo has sunk very low, and from what Naruto tells me, he has alarming beliefs. Homura and Koharu are controlled by him as well. Said Tsunade warningly. Fine. But they will pay for their crimes against my clan, make no mistake. He said with venom. Mito nodded approvingly. If anyone could understand devotion to a slaughtered clan, it was her. Sasuke, it might be possible for you to meet Itachi sometime in the next few years. What do you think, Mito? Asked Naruto. Mito looked considering, as did Tsunade and Kushina. Do you really want to take him? She asked, glancing at Sasuke. Naruto nodded. That way he could continue to help Sasuke and free him from his suffering. What are you talking about? How can I meet Itachi? Asked Sasuke with confusion. Naruto grimaced. We will tell you after you have fully calmed down, Sasuke. If you agree, we might have to change many plans. Go rest, Sasuke. You have had too many revelations for one day. Sasuke looked mutinous for a few moments, then sighed and nodded. I need to think more upon this. See you later, everyone, said Sasuke absently as he disappeared with a shunshin. Naruto noted with pride that Sasuke had barely made a seal to use that technique. The young Uchiha's power was increasing. Slowly by his own standards, but surely. Raikage's office, Kyumigakur. The Yondaime Hokage lounged on his chair leisurely, listening absently to his brother's nonsensical conversation with Yujito. B as usual was rapping, causing Yujito to sweat drop so much that he wondered if she had invented a new water jutsu. These days, only issues of international power balances occupied his mind. Suna and Iwa were getting closer and closer, Akatsuki meshed with them dangerously. Konoha as god of shinobi, Uzumaki Naruto had risen to become a very fearsome shinobi. The tides of time were swirling in a very specific pattern, and if he did not read that pattern, Kyumo would perish. He knew that there was wisdom in allying with Konoha, but international situations did not allow him to do so. Kyumo could not afford to appear weak. So he had been speaking with the Mizukage on the matter. The two Kage were alarmed by Suna and Iwa's near military reorganization. They were trying to find out the identity of the new Kaze Kage, but Suna had not released that information till now. So he had sent a team to get intelligence on the general state of Suna. Accessing Iwa was impossible, they were under martial law. No shinobi could penetrate Iwa with a high degree of risk, and Kyumo could lose its neutrality if Iwa were to uncover one of its spies. So information from Iwa had to be gotten from Suna. Raikage-sama. She and Darui have successfully completed their missions and await your audience. Shall I send them in? Asked his sexy secretary, Mabi. Sat up with barely concealed eagerness and signaled Mabi to send them in. We got the intel, said Darui in a bored voice. She nodded tiredly. It seemed they had an exhausting mission. Go on. Tell me what you learned. A brief report will do. I expect a detailed one tomorrow. Darui nodded. He had spiky white hair, and carried a cleaver sword. He was a very strong ninja, having inherited the Black Lightning from the third Raikage. She was a sensor ninja just below Yujito's caliber. Suna's new Kaze Kage is Yura, a former councilman. Also he is a formidable shinobi. Suna has authorized the recruitment and training of wartime shinobi, and they have begun gathering shinobi mercenaries in earnest. Their armies are slowly growing. Civilian law is erased, leaving shinobi supreme in the village. The new Kaze Kage has authorized research into the highly destructive techniques of the third Kaze Kage, and other jutsu suited only for large-scale destruction. They are beginning a long-period mobilization, strengthening their village from the inside. The Raikage sat silent at this. Suddenly B burst into speech. We're gonna kick their asses. Just like Naruto kicked Iwa asses. I'm the Hakabe, and I'll let my power free. We. Yelled B. Yujito face palmed and A ignored him completely. What about Iwa? What is going on with them? Disturbing rumors, Raikage-sama. Said Darui shaking his head. Even she looked rather apprehensive. Yujito and B looked at them seriously. What? Asked Yujito curiously. They say Iwa is sealed off to all but Suna, and that Akatsuki is building their bases there legally. I guess Iwa has formally allied itself with Akatsuki. I think when the time comes, Iwa will merge with Suna to form a larger village. Their alliance is becoming stronger by the day, mused Darui. Do not ignore the minor villages, Raikage-sama. We have reports that a Megakure has allied with Iwa. There are indications of a major power block being born in the elemental countries. Iwa is gathering strength even faster than Suna. After their defeat at the hands of Uzumaki Naruto, they seem to have woken up to their weakness, said Mabi thoughtfully. Raikage-sama, I think we should treat this as a precursor to war. Iwa, Suna, and AIM are allying slowly. Takigakure and Kyuzagakure are also leaning towards that alliance. Orochimaru's Otagakure has definitely joined in that alliance. We have to somehow find a way to ally with Konoha and Kirigakure. Only then can we oppose the rising power of the Iwa block, she analyzed coolly. The Raikage stood up with resolve on his face. His shinobi straightened as they saw the powerful Kage's authority blaze. The Akatsuki is pulling strings from the shadows. They have aims and agendas of their own, and we must be prepared for any major invasion. Darui, begin the preparation of our war response units. Do it slowly and thoroughly. I assume it will take a few years for that alliance to consolidate its power. Then, I fear it will be war, said the Raikage. Darui nodded and disappeared. I looked at the remaining with a thoughtful expression. Summon the full council and arrange a meeting with the daimyo. I will not allow our village to fall, however high be the cost. Akatsuki base. Kakuzu, what is your mission status? Questioned Pain, his Rinnegan shining. Itachi stood beside him with his Sharingan activated permanently. The Akatsuki were present in their spectral forms, all save Orochimaru and the Jujutsu users. Takigaku is easy to persuade, as we thought. They know that Akatsuki has enough power to raise the village to the ground. They are stalling, though. Anyway, prey like them will have to submit sooner or later, said Kakuzu in his deep voice. Haiden, though, was uncharacteristically quiet as he saw Pain and Itachi stand side by side. Good. And you, Deidara and Tobi? What is your status? The old man is getting more and more hospitable, yeah. He authorized Akatsuki to hire Iwa forces. The old geezer said he's taken the first step of the merger, Finished Deidara smugly. Senpai, you're too good. Leader Sama, you should have seen Senpai talk the old geezer into submission, it was dash. Quiet, Tobi, cut in Pain. So the merger has begun well. Soon we will have nearly half the shinobi world's power under our control. Kisame and Orochimaru, how is the gathering at Otagaku going? Many of my experiments will soon be ready, Leader Sama. Kisame is at Oto, organizing the mobilization of the Nukenin. I estimate a few years before we reach the targeted strength, said Orochimaru silkily. Kisame just nodded. Good. Things are on track, then. In 3 years we will begin our move against the Jinhiriki starting from the Ichibi. Let us disperse. The spectral figures all disappeared, leaving Orochimaru, Pain and Itachi facing one another. You have your side of the bargain to fulfill, Pain. I gave you all the information you requested, and am actively rendering my aid to Akatsuki. Will you keep your promise? Questioned Orochimaru sardonically. Come closer, Orochimaru, said Pain. The snake Sunin appeared right in front of the Rinnegan wielder. Itachi observed the happenings quietly, his Sharingan shining red in the dim light of the cave. Pain held out both his hands, palms facing up. 2 crackling lights sprung up in his hands. One was shining red in his left palm, and the other was bright blue in his right palm. Yin and Yang chakras in their purest forms. Itachi's eyes widened as he saw what Pain was doing. He had gained this much mastery over the Rinnegan. Hashirama-sama was wrong. Pain merged both lights into one, his palms now encasing a bright white light. Orochimaru looked on greedily, his snake-like eyes shining maliciously as Pain performed a technique thought lost to the world. It was the creation of all things. Banbutsu Sasa. Chapter 13. Kazekage's office, Tsunagaku. Good. You are all here. Now, Baki, what is the status of our borders with Kumo? Last I heard, we were on rather tense terms with their outposts. Baki turned to the Kazekage, but not before shooting a warning glance at the 2 remaining Sand siblings. Temari and Kankura were distraught, being separated from Gaara for months. It made Baki wonder how those 2 could still love a person who was so heartless. Their bond was truly strong. Yes, Kazekage-sama. Our relations with Kumo are terser than usual. Just yesterday, we had an altercation with their border patrol. The ninja Darui caught our infiltrators and wiped them all out with black lightning. I think we need to step up our skirmishes with the Kumo Jounin to keep them at bay. The Kazekage, Yura, steepled his fingers, thinking deeply. Temari and Kankura were sitting pensively, not even looking at the other 2 occupants of the room. Ever since the invasion of Konoha, Suna had been declining. Who would have thought Uzumaki Naruto to possess such power? By all reports, he was someone who could potentially pose a threat to entire villages. His actions had thrown everyone off balance. No. We need to stop assaulting any other nation. We react for now, but we do not act. The time is not right, said the Kazekage slowly. Beiki stared at him, noting this inconsistency of behavior. Yura was always one for action, usually dishonorable action. Kankura slowly stood up, fixing the Kazekage with a stare. Suna's Jinhiraki, the Jinhiraki of the Ichiban no Shukaku, is in foreign hands. My brother, the former Kazekage's son, is in foreign hands. How can you let this slide? Temari pulled him down, looking apologetically at her Kage. It was not a good idea to make demands or order the Kazekage around, not a good idea at all. They had to get Gaara on their own. You make a good point. A good point indeed, Kankura. What are your thoughts on this, Temari? Asked the Kazekage solicitously. Temari was not fooled. Every shinobi had in himself darkness, but not like this Kazekage. He exuded malice, and for no reason. Temari had a feeling that Yura would cast Suna aside easily if it helped him achieve his goals. Gaara is my brother, Kazekage-sama. Even when he was on his killing rampages, I never stopped seeing him as such. He might be a crazed killer, but he was made such a thing by this village. We owe him. She said strongly. Beiki stepped up to face the Kazekage, who stared scrutinizingly at Temari. More than that, Kazekage-sama, we need our Jinhiraki back. Suna is most familiar with the Ichiban, so it is best we have him back. For tactical reasons, it is necessary. Konoha has the Kyuubi, the strongest of them all. Kumo has Hakubi and Nibi. Iwa has Gobi and Yonbi, Kiri has Rokubi and Sanbi, and even Taki has Nanabi. We are at a disadvantage in this regard. The power of the Sand Demon has always belonged to Suna. The Kazekage stared consideringly at the three he had summoned. Temari and Kankura did not hope for much, as their leader had always put off missions concerning Gaara. They had no doubt that Yura would leave their little brother to the tender care of Kumo Shinobi, leave him to be weaponized even more. I agree. The three subordinates stared disbelievingly at Yura, unable to understand this sudden acquiescence to their request. Oh, don't look like that, Temari and Kankura. You too, Beiki. I am the Kazekage of this village, after all, and I am always on the lookout for our best interests. We need our Jinhiraki back, and we need him back soon. Thus I will convene a full council to make plans for the retrieval of Sabaku no Gaara. We cannot afford to have the power of our sand demon added to a nation with two Jinhiraki of its own. Beiki nodded solemnly. He was a loyal servant of Suna's Kage, whoever be that Kage. Suna should prosper, no matter what, no matter the deals they make or with whom. Konoha! Damn it! Shouted Naruto, cursing at the devastation he had caused in Training Ground 7. He was trying to learn Jiraiya's improved version of the Rasengan, the Udama Rasengan. He had got it too, but it was somewhat unstable. It exploded on him at unwanted intervals, and that was unwelcome. The council had changed plans on him at the last minute. They had asked him to accompany Kushina to Kiri, and then to travel to Kumo together. When he thought about it, it made sense. Traveling alone in these times was dangerous no matter how powerful you were. Konoha was surrounded everywhere by hostile nations. It was a prelude to war. Would you teach my son properly, Jiraiya-sensei? Telling him to pump more chakra into his Rasengan, and staring discreetly at my body the remaining time does not qualify as teaching, now does it? Asked Kushina in a dangerous voice. She was here with Naruto to watch him train, and help him if he needed it. Hey, I taught him all right. Watch him go at it, will you? He learned one of my more powerful techniques in about half a day. I am the greatest teacher, after all. Finished Jiraiya smugly. Kushina shot him a disgusted look, and watched as Naruto gathered chakra in his palm. Her son had a really unhealthy determination, electing to learn techniques no matter day or night. He said that the newer generation was always meant to surpass the older. Kushina could hardly believe him. How could anyone surpass the Yondaime Hokage in strength? She could not conceive of anyone so powerful. The only one who came to mind was Uchiha Madara, and that Uchiha never surpassed the Shoday. Naruto had sensed her disbelief, and countered with an answer that had her thinking. Brute strength is not the only power in this world, Ka-san. It may seem that way, but it truly isn't. No one has even come close to matching the Rakoda Sennin, in all the generations after him. But there have been great men, great humans since him. Even when assaulted by darkness in every front, they chose not to lose their light. Uchiha Kagami, Itachi and many others come to mind. Here he paused, shaking his head regretfully. It is these people who embody the spirit of humanity who are the strongest, Ka-san. The Six-Path Sage was such a man, and there have been many since. Some names are lost in the tides of history, but their effect will be felt forever. You too are such a man, Naruto. You brought peace to the nations, you brought light to our village. Do not discount yourself from their ranks. She had exclaimed, surprised at the self-reproach in his voice. It was as if he wanted to be like those men he had just spoken of. Did he not realize he already was? I am not like them, Ka-san. People may think me great, but I consider myself short-sighted and selfish. Kushina just stared at her son. She never knew what he thought of himself. No dash. Yes. That is why this time I will not bind myself with my own preconceptions. I won't waste my second chance. That conversation had reminded her how much she did not know about her son. He had uncharted depths to him, hidden by the mists of history. The sadness in his face as he spoke of himself was heartbreaking to see. It was the look of a man who held himself in contempt. She sighed as he saw Naruto implode another huge Rasengan in his palm. Naruto had stopped cursing, and was staring blankly at his palm. Jiraiya appeared next to him and put a hand on his shoulder. I expected that to happen, you know. Your chakra is a little too potent to compress so much. You will have to find a different way to stabilize the improved Rasengan, Naruto. I know, sighed Naruto. It was too much to hope for, really. His chakra was too strong. Way too strong for something like this. He turned to his mother as she put a hand upon his shoulder. Don't be sad, Naruto. The Kyuubi's chakra is not something that you can isolate from your body. It is a part of you, something that will strengthen you even more. You will find a different way to enhance your father's jutsu. I have faith in you. She said firmly. Naruto smiled up at her. It is an advantage, Ka-san. My body is the confluence of Senju and Uzumaki, after all. He said happily. Then he turned to Kushina with a serious look on his face. If I cannot learn the Udama Rasengan the normal way, then so be it. I will improvise as it suits me. But Ka-san, I have always wanted to learn father's Hiraishin no Jutsu. Do you by any chance have the seal blueprints? I really want to learn a space-time ninjutsu. He said eagerly. But Kushina shook her head. It is not at our home, I checked. I wonder where it has gone. There is no point in anyone stealing it, really. Why would they? It was made for your father and his descendants only. I presume someone has misplaced it during the renovation. Too bad, we'll ask the Hokage to look for it later, shall we? Naruto nodded glumly. He really was looking forward to learning the Hiraishin no Jutsu. He would have one up on Tobirama, at least. It could really occupy one's time, creating and learning new jutsu. Tobirama was a prodigy in that regard, but he himself was no slouch either. The trees suddenly rustled, conveying a crushing sense of urgency to him. Something was wrong, very wrong indeed. He stood up abruptly. Enormous amounts of foreign chakra! Exclaimed Jiraiya. Kushina snarled. He ignored them, however, and concentrated fully on Konoha. He could sense nothing. It was as if his senses were being blinded. He concentrated even more, silver chakra rising from his body. Kushina and Jiraiya looked alarmed as Naruto shut himself off from them, and seemed to be exclusively focusing upon his sensing. Kurama, help me. Someone knows the weakness of my sensory techniques and they are actively shrouding the entirety of Konoha. It's Akatsuki. Naruto's body began leaking red chakra, causing Jiraiya and Kushina to get even more alarmed. They had no news. Naruto was using Kyuubi's chakra, and that frightened them. They could hear faint noises of the shinobi being roused and being whipped into a frantic state. Something was going on. Something big. Jiraiya closed his eyes, and an orange ring appeared around his eyes. The characteristic grey chakra of the Uzumaki rolled off Kushina, as she too prepared for imminent battle. Konoha was being attacked over and over again, despite proving its superiority. Akatsuki were persistent. "Will you please stop drowning the entire area with chakra?" asked Naruto in an annoyed voice, letting go of his chakra. Kushina and Jiraiya looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" asked Kushina. Naruto sighed, trying to erase his trepidation. He felt someone familiar nearing him. A second later Kakashi stood in front of Naruto, for once not reading that damned book of his. "Sasuke is gone. No trace of him at all. We need to find him. We need to find him now," said Kakashi grimly. Kushina's eyes widened, as did Jiraiya's. However, Naruto scowled. "There was no lie in Sasuke's mind as he promised us, I sensed it. He cannot deceive me. So we must assume that he has been taken by force. You are our strongest censor, Hashirama. Find him." "The shinobi are running around like headless chicken, they won't help," said Mito, appearing beside Naruto with barely a whisper. Naruto looked at all of them. His family was being threatened again. Not losing his calm, he addressed them. "Let us go somewhere we can discuss without interruption, shall we? This place is frequented by genin, after all." So saying, he disappeared with Shunshin, followed closely by the others. They stood atop the hill that housed the Hokage carvings. Jiraiya, Kushina, Kakashi, and Mito stood silent as Naruto tried his best to sense Sasuke's location. They could still feel the enormous power of the unknown chakra shrouding the village. It felt disgusting. The feel of it was malicious. The person who was exuding it was clearly dangerous. Naruto opened his eyes, slashing his palm through the air in his frustration. "Someone is actively overloading my sensory perception, that is what that huge chakra is doing everywhere. The foreign chakra is very heavy. I can disperse it, but..." "Do it, then!" exclaimed Kushina, frantic at losing Sasuke. If Naruto could sense his location, they could concentrate their forces to that location instead of spreading them thin everywhere. Kakashi was looking over Konoha with his Mangekyo. Jiraiya was busily using the extraordinary sensing of his Sage mode to pinpoint Sasuke. "Let us reason this out, first," said Kakashi. Kushina looked at him angrily, but one look from Mito made her lose her anger. They turned to Kakashi as he began to speak. "We need Sasuke's location. The enemy has created a chakra shroud, the only weakness of the sensory ninja. It is also a weakness of the Sharingan, as we can see only that thick chakra. It is like mist, except the mist here is chakra. They have enormous resources to do this, so we can assume it is one of the Akatsuki allied nations. This is not something a single ninja can do. Minato-sensei and I faced this in the Third War." "What do you mean, Kakashi? What is this technique?" asked Jiraiya. He usually took a different sector from Minato during the war. Good shinobi were rare during those times. Kakashi shook his head. "All I know is that they confused Minato-sensei. He could not feel them at all. He said they were inducing oscillations in the surrounding chakra, said he did not have the power to calm down the chakra miles in every direction." Naruto walked to the end of the cliff, his long blonde hair flying as the wind buffeted them. "Everyone get back. I will take care of the chakra shroud. Mito, place yourself and them in a barrier," he said with determination. Akatsuki was becoming a major player, and their audacity intrigued him. They dared to antagonize him after seeing his power? He appeared upon the carving of Senju Hashirama's face, and he could see the entirety of Konoha laid out before him. The chakra shroud was as strong as ever, blotting out his perception. "Sasuke! I can just barely sense through the shroud, and I can give you the location of those creating it. 2 miles, east of Konoha. A group of 50 shinobi, can you take care of them, Ka-san?" asked Naruto. Kushina disappeared with an unhesitating nod. He closed his eyes once more, immersing himself in the ocean of chakra that pervaded Konoha. Kushina's blood boiled as she raced towards the division that maintained the shroud. Sasuke was taken from them, and that made her almost insane with rage. She still remembered how sweet Sasuke was as a baby. Naruto was sweeter, of course. But Sasuke was adorable, and he held a special place in her heart. The boys had suffered too much, and they were suffering still. She could see the group of 50 ninjas seated in a large circle, all of them holding up the half-ram seal, just as her son had said. Her bloodlust heightened as she observed each and every one of them. They were well hidden. The forest of the god was very dense indeed, allowing for them to hide themselves in a raised clearing. But not well enough to hide from her. She was sensor enough to peer through the Misagaku or no jutsu. She could see them, no, feel their chakras pouring out uncontrollably. She ghosted even closer, moving soundlessly through the treetops. The ninja were all sweating uncontrollably, moaning in pain. She could sense the overload of chakras in their bodies. They were forced to do this. No chakra is that malicious by nature. This chakra is filtered through seals to produce that darkness. These ninja were captured and their chakras are being used to just shroud Naruto's perception. Inhumane. Akatsuki are inhumane. Seeing that the 50 ninja were in no position to defend themselves, Kushina appeared in the midst of their circle. The only way to stop their chakra emission was to kill them all. Katon, Hano Dai Kojui. A torrent of white-hot flames exploded from her mouth, igniting everything around her. The unaware ninja were reduced to ashes as the flames consumed them all. Kushina watched as her deluge of flames technique incinerated the poor ninja who were being used as a power source for the chakra shroud. She could feel the malice lifting from the air, and felt Naruto expelling the last of the chakra shroud. Sasuke was as good as located, now. She raced back towards Konoha, thinking exultantly. Let us see you run from Senju Hashirama, Akatsuki. Let us see you run from the full might of Konoha directed against you. The chakra shroud was completely destroyed. It seemed Kushina had found its source and dealt with it. Kakashi and Jiraiya watched with utter amazement as markings began to appear on Naruto's face. A thick ring of red covered each of his eyes, and 2 arcs of red adorned each cheek along with 2 concentric circles of red on the center of his forehead. Is that Sage Mode? Questioned Jiraiya in utter astonishment. The nature chakra pouring off Naruto was like nothing he had ever felt. It was pure and strong beyond anything possible. Mito turned to them. You are seeing something lost to history, Jiraiya and Kakashi. That is the Sage Mode he used to defeat Uchiha Madara at the Valley of End. He must want to sense Sasuke as fast as possible. Hashirama's Sage Mode amplifies his strength many times. He only had to scratch the surface of its power to defeat Madara. Jiraiya and Kakashi watched with their hair standing on end as the entire hill began to shine silver. They could barely see as Naruto's chakra saturated the entire village. Naruto himself was surrounded by a huge nimbus of pure white chakra as he stared at the horizon. He then slammed his palms together. Senpo! The nimbus surrounding Naruto blasted outward rapidly, causing the entire village to be drenched in white light. Mito watched her husband proudly. She knew he could sense about half of Fire Country with this technique down to the last sapling. Nothing could escape this technique. Mokuton. The village was fully obscured by brightness by now. Everyone in Konoha was guarding themselves from the massive white light. Naruto's golden hair was flying as he stood upon the carving of his former face, ecstatic at the rush of his full power as he felt everything in Konoha. Jiraiya had sunk down to his knees as he felt drunk on the unbelievable chakra Naruto was throwing off. This was the true power of Senjutsu. His Toad Sage Mode seemed puny compared to the power of Senju Hashirama. And to think it was still undeveloped. Naruto opened his eyes, and Kakashi could see them glowing like green embers, giving them a glimpse of the utter strength of the man within. Konoha's canopy of white light was getting even brighter, causing its residents to cry out. Mori no Kokii! Roared Naruto. The canopy of white light covering Konoha now dispersed, gathering along its walls. Then, it blasted in all directions towards the end of the horizon from his location, a white sheet of light spreading like a blooming flower over the entire landscape. The beautiful light went on and on, washing over every forest in Fire Country and giving its creator the power to become one with all forests it touched. There is no chance Sasuke has been taken outside of Fire Country this fast. I will find them all too easily. I will find you, Sasuke. The forests can see, after all. And I see what they see now. Somewhere in Konoha. You shithead, Jirobo. Can't you hold that fucking basket a little firmer, you fat fuck? If you fucking wake up that bastard son of a bitch Uchiha, things may go out of our fucking control. Cursed a rather pretty young woman. Such terrible words from a girl's mouth. Don't worry Tewa. I have the crazy monster contained well. My seal is pretty good, after all. He won't get any chance to use those eyes of his, said Jirobo confidently. Running besides him were his mates, Kidomaru and Seikon. If Orochimaru-sama did not need him, I would tear the little shit Sasuke to pieces. Growled Seikon. Their extraction had been dangerous indeed. Kidomaru frowned as he considered their near-death experience under the hands of a child like Sasuke. Orochimaru-sama never said he was that strong, it took all of us at Cursed Seal level 1 to overcome that little shit. Cursed Seal level 2 did not save Yukon from that black fire, Seikon is now alone, something he feared from the beginning. Uchiha Sasuke is too strong for his age. Nothing compared to the Mokuton user, but still noteworthy. Orochimaru-sama said the extraction point was somewhere around here. They stopped at the ruins of a bounty office, its dilapidated structure slowly being reclaimed by the forest. The woods provided them with good cover, allowing them to conceal their scents from trackers and giving good spots for hiding and camping. There is the bounty office, Seikon. Orochimaru-sama said someone would come to take Sasuke from us around here, we should wait. The sooner we are rid of this little monster, the better. He should be Orochimaru-sama's problem, said Jirobo. They stood among the dense woods, making camp discreetly. It appeared as if the one who would relieve them of their burden would arrive late. Might as well recuperate by the time he arrived. I found him, said Naruto calmly. How? Questioned Jiraiya, still unable to believe what he witnessed. Below them, Konoha was stirring frantically after Naruto's jutsu. I become one with the forests, Arrow Senin. Mito-chan, listen carefully. Meet Tsunade and explain to her my actions. Tell her to send a team about 30 miles southwest of Konoha. I sense Sasuke and someone else near a lake. There are a few enemies, ask them to be ready for it. I will assist where I can, said Naruto. Mito nodded and disappeared with a shunshin. What's going on? Came Kushina's voice from behind them. The beautiful Uzumaki woman looked around, looking unruffled by her recent skirmish. I found Sasuke, Ka-san, said Naruto with resolve lacing his tone. Kushina smiled a bright smile at this. Her son would never fail, ever. It was in his blood to triumph. And I will bring him back. It was well over 3 hours after they set up camp, thank Kami, their barrier was holding up. Sasuke was still out cold, they had their luck to thank for that. Yukon had used a suicide technique as he was turned to ashes by Sasuke's black fire. The explosion had knocked out Sasuke, he was a little too close to it. Even in death, you helped me, Yukon. I will not spare Sasuke, never. Someday I will have my vengeance upon him. I swear it on my soul, thought Seikon as he kept watch. It was nearing late noon, and still the contact had not arrived. If this went on for long, then he would have to call off the mission and just take Sasuke to the nearest hideout. Oi, fucker. Shouldn't that asshole be here by now? Orochimaru-sama did say we would have to just stay here for an hours. It's been more than 3, you cocksucking dickhead. Let's just leave this bloody bastard here and go. No. We have to complete this mission to Orochimaru-sama's satisfaction. Sasuke must reach the possession of his acquaintance. There is no other recourse, we must wait as long as we can, said Seikon. By now the others had assembled, keeping Sasuke in the middle. But we are well within Konoha territory. Why on earth did Orochimaru-sama insist not to cross Konoha with Sasuke? It would have made our jobs easier. Shit. Cursed Jirobo. Kidomaru suddenly went quiet, shushing them all. Someone is here, be careful. Activate level 1. Markings of the Cursed Seal covered their bodies in a second, increasing their abilities many times over. Kidomaru listened closely for any more intervention. Before they could react, a ninja stood in their midst. He wore the black and red cloak of Akatsuki, same as Orochimaru-sama. I could not even hear him come in. This ninja is extremely skilled. As much as Orochimaru-sama. To beat the natural senses of a spider like me, no mean feat. We must avoid antagonizing him. To the surprise of the other Sound 5, Kidomaru stepped forward with an inclined head. Are you the contact? I am Kakuzu, said the masked ninja in a deep voice. His pupils were fully green, and it was intimidating. I will take Uchiha Sasuke now. The 5 of you are to delay any pursuers till I am clear, is that understood? At any cost Sasuke must reach his destination. No matter who comes, you must stand your ground. No one in Konoha can defeat us. We are Orochimaru-sama's foremost subordinates. Sasuke was defeated all too easily, just like everyone else. We are the Sound 5. Yelled Jirobo. Kakuzu looked at him as if he were an insect to be squashed. Why am I summoned? Questioned a deep voice. It was the ninja Kakuzu, without his partner Haiden. Kakuzu was quite the simple man. For him, it was all about profit. Something was profitable, or it was not. It was why he tolerated Akatsuki, and that idiot Haiden. That idiotic Jashin worshipper often had him wanting to destroy something large, preferably a mile or two of forest. Akatsuki gave him access to some excellent bounties, and his assets had grown considerably. But money was only one part of it. There was in fact no way he could refuse Pain and live. Pain had the Rinnegan, and that was something to be feared and respected. He watched as Pain and Itachi walked towards him, observing him closely. They had refused to speak via astral projection, instead asking him to be present physically. Kakuzu, I need you to do some damage control near the border of Kiri and Konoha. Orochimaru has acted, and has kidnapped Uchiha Sasuke. Uzumaki Naruto is going after him. If Orochimaru's subordinates skirt the Kiri border and enter into Iwa, I will have to get involved. Uzumaki Naruto cannot be allowed to enter our territories. Kakuzu looked interested. Isn't that the ninja that fights like Hashirama? Yes, that is him. If he moves towards our territories, I will have to move to stop him. It is inevitable. But for now, you need to wrest Sasuke from the hands of Orochimaru's subordinates, and move to within Kiri. There you will engage Uzumaki Naruto for a time, and then flee. We are not ready for a war yet, said Pain strongly. Itachi watched him closely, his Sharingan slowly spinning. Kakuzu nodded. It shall be as you say. Who is in possession of the young Uchiha? Is it anyone I should be careful with? Itachi stepped forward. No, they are nothing. Some of Orochimaru's experiments are ferrying him, I believe. Dispose of them if they are too annoying, and execute the plan. We need to divert Naruto-kun from our lands. What plan? Asked Kakuzu. We will tell you presently, said Pain, motioning for Kakuzu to join them, which he did. Pathetic. The Sound 5, huh? There are ninja in Konoha that can crush all of you effortlessly. I am tempted to do that myself, in fact. Did you know here Kakuzu stopped. A very bright white light washed over everywhere they could see, and continued to sweep into the distance. The trees seemed to whisper to each other, and quiet fell over the entire woods. The Sound 5 looked at Kakuzu and shrugged. Inexplicably, a thick tendril of Kakuzu's hair shot out, taking Sasuke's container firmly. He looked around at the Sound 5, who were looking at him condescendingly. Is the great Kakuzu afraid? Mocked Jirobo. Kakuzu stared at him, saying nothing. Then he turned to the forest, examining each tree closely. Then without a single word, he just disappeared with Sasuke held firm by his hair tendrils. What the fuck was that? Yelled Teiwa. There must be enemies close by, ready yourselves. That must be why he left so abruptly. They must be formidable. Advance to level 2. Shouted Seikon. The Sound 5's bodies turned crimson red, taking on demonic attributes. The malice of their chakras filled the air completely, but its effect was muted. They stared at the forest in surprise. Always when they used the curse seal too, nature seemed to abhor it. Forest animals always gave death wails, trees seemed to wither a little. Their chakra was impure, they knew that for a fact. It was that impurity that lent them their power. But here, the forest was stronger than ever. Their chakra seemed without effect, leaving them with a feeling that their power was being muted. Suddenly, they felt a presence behind them. Together the five turned as one, and found themselves staring at something that should be impossible. They found themselves staring at the Yondaime Hokage, complete with katana, armor, and the scroll of seals. His black hair whipped around in the gathering wind, and his green eyes exuded a sense of power that made Orochimaru-sama look like a kid with a temper tantrum. The Sound Five looked at each other. They would complete their mission, no matter the cost. Together, they charged but to no avail. "Mokyudan Hiijutsu, Jukai Kouden," said the first in a calm voice. Hundreds of trees burst out of the ground, hurtling towards them at an unbelievable speed. Jirobo tried to slam it away with his super strength, but another branch caught his wrists firmly. His legs were also bound tight. He was unable to make seals and got captured easily. Kidomaru was slammed down to the ground and trapped firmly by a huge root that sprouted out of the ground near him. Teiwa however tried to use a genjutsu on the first, but to no avail. The first clasped his palms together in the serpent seal, causing large branches to blast out of the ground and bind Teiwa. Seikon was unconscious, having been captured by a tree and squeezed mercilessly. Teiwa felt the branches bear down on her, probably trying to incapacitate her. She dimly saw the same happen to the others. How futile, all this preparation for nothing. The last thing she saw was the Yondaime Hokage smiling faintly as he shook his head and faded to become one with the tree behind him. Wood Bunshin. Shit. I don't know how this is possible, but we were forced to fight the Yondaime Hokage. I am sorry, Orochimaru-sama, we are powerless before him. He defeated us all with a single technique. We are so sorry, Orochimaru-sama. Her world became black as she fell into unconsciousness, her chakra drained by the tree that imprisoned her. Naruto smiled as he captured Orochimaru's subordinates easily. They were too weak, despite having those cursed seals Orochimaru seemed to be fond of. Even the diluted power of a wood clone from such a distance could capture those poor fools easily. Orochimaru never understood the power a pure entity contained, it was all about enhancement and growth for him. What happened, Naruto? Asked Kushina, who had returned to the hill. Naruto looked at her, noting the lack of strain in her chakra. She had been in a rather easy fight, apparently. He also noted Jiraiya looking pensive. I just incapacitated a few of Orochimaru's people. Sasuke was not with them, however Kushina began to look worried, but stopped when Naruto shot her a reassuring look. Don't worry, they will not escape Fire Country. They were foolish enough to travel by forests, and forests are my domain. It seems we have the identity of another Akatsuki member. He said. Who is it? Questioned Jiraiya. This was becoming too dangerous, he felt something off with this entire affair. Akatsuki seemed not to be trying hard enough, they did have an idea of Naruto's strength. So where the hell was Pain and Itachi? Where the hell was the imposter? Kakuzu, an assassin of Taki I fought back in the old days, I had no idea he is still alive. I felt his chakra, he has become much stronger since our last fight. I can see him running towards the Kiri border with Sasuke unconscious. I will have to deal with him personally, said Naruto, letting his sage mode dissipate. Now that the shroud was off, he could trace Sasuke by the scent of his chakra. My ability to sense the Mangekyo is coming in useful at last, they cannot hide Sasuke from me now. Time to finish off that hairy zombie Kakuzu. What? Where are you going? Said Kushina urgently as she saw Naruto walking away. Naruto turned, and considered the situation. They were to leave soon for a mission to Kiri anyways, there was no point in having to double back and collect his mother. Ka-san, Sasuke is being taken towards Kiri. We have our mission there anyway, so do you want to come along? We'll take Sasuke back on the way, invited Naruto. Kushina nodded enthusiastically. This was just perfect. It seems you have the situation well in hand, Naruto. I should get back to my research, and keeping tabs on Akatsuki. I need to find out how they were able to slip past Konoha's barrier technique, said Jiraiya. These breaches in security were alarming. Naruto nodded. Get Mito to help you, she designed that barrier after all. Kakashi, follow my trail with an Umbu team as fast as possible, with Tsunade's authorization of course. I and Kasan are leaving right now. Kakashi and Jiraiya disappeared. Kushina looked at her son. Let's go, Naruto. Let's finish this fast. Naruto nodded, and they both disappeared with their fastest Shunshin, blurs covering a mile per jump. There was no way Akatsuki could hide from them now, not when he had felt their chakra. Kakuzu, you are the only one who has fought Hashirama and Akatsuki. You are the one who remembers his power. Said Pain. I see. You want me to fight Uzumaki Naruto, I assume, said Kakuzu with certainty. Itachi nodded at this. Naruto-kun is an unknown quantity still, we cannot make an informed guess about him till we have intel about his true strength. You can gauge his strength for us, Kakuzu. He has the Kyuubi within him, after all, and he is pivotal to our plans when the time arrives. Pain needs to find out how strong Naruto is compared to Hashirama. Since you have fought Hashirama before, you can give us a fair assessment. Said Itachi. Kakuzu snorted at this. The only one who could make Hashirama bring out his full strength was Madara, no one really knew his full strength. No, hear me out. It is true I can compare this Naruto kid to Hashirama and can give you intel on his strength, but I barely escaped alive the one time I faced Hashirama. If this kid even has a fraction of his strength. Are you saying you will lose to some kid? Questioned Itachi stoically. Kakuzu looked at him, and snorted once more. He had always held Itachi in respect, even more so these days. Something in the young Uchiha had changed, he had a feeling Itachi could even take on Pain if necessary. Believe what you wish, Itachi. You do not know how strong the Senju are. Your clan was no match for them, after all. But I will fight him. As you say, only I can provide you with a good assessment of his strength. And I may land a bounty that may make me sinfully rich if I kill him. Said Kakuzu. Kakuzu shook himself out of his memories as he deposited Sasuke on the ground. They were just within Kiri, having crossed the Konoha border minutes before. Kakuzu had taken out the paltry shinobi guarding the border with ease, making sure that the upcoming fight would be uninterrupted. Sasuke was bait, simple as that. If he had to fight a Mokuton user, it had to be on his own terms. Pain had created such a situation. If the Akatsuki were to face a true Mokuton user in the future, it would be best to gather info on his strength. The smell of a large bounty was very attractive to Kakuzu. He opened his bingo book to check on the latest updates on Uzumaki Naruto. Mei Terumi, Uchiha Itachi, Uzumaki Kushina, Senju Tsunade, there. Name, Uzumaki Naruto. Age, 14. Height, 5 feet 11 inches. Class, beyond S-class, true strength unknown, possibly still increasing. Konoha is god of shinobi. Very powerful Suton user. Very powerful Doton user. Annihilated an Iwa army with Mokuton, extremely skilled Shunshin user. Skilled Kenjutsu. Skilled Taijutsu. Bounties, Iwa, twice weight in gold, Suna, weight in gold. Flee on sight. This alone was enough to erase Kakuzu's misgivings as he stood there, waiting for Uzumaki Naruto to appear. Sasuke was just a useless lump, lying in his container. But then again, those Sound 5 had used a powerful barrier seal to confine him. Kakuzu waited impatiently, sure that Naruto would be here in a couple hours. Here, I will even help him find me. Kakuzu unleashed his chakra, making sure it was felt for a large distance in every direction. If Uzumaki Naruto could not find him now, then he was not worth fighting. Naruto and Kushina were rushing through the land, using all their considerable expertise at body flicker. It was 2 hours since they left Konoha, and they had covered quite a long distance. Naruto's sensory field was at full awareness, he was able to pick up the smallest fluctuations in chakra in a 4-kilometer radius. He was following Sasuke's chakra trail rapidly. Naruto, stop, said Kushina, pausing to find 4 Orochimaru followers, unconscious and trapped in a wood release technique. Naruto appeared in the midst of the unaware miscreants, and the trees binding them automatically receded into the ground. The 4 were arranged neatly on the ground, looking worse for wear. Naruto, this was the same chakra that was shrouding the village. Orochimaru used the cursed seal upon those 50 shinobi, and forced them to emit chakra incessantly. "That snake, if I find him!" snarled Kushina. Naruto watched as she drew her blade, and moved to kill the Sound Five. He did not stop her. Within a second, their throats were slit. They had died a painless death. He smiled grimly. Orochimaru had lost some of his more important lieutenants. Before Naruto was done, he would lose a lot more. His grin slipped as he felt Kakuzu emitting his chakra and pulses, as if to challenge him. He could feel his old enemy's eagerness and focus. The past always leaves its remnants, huh? Well, time to end Kakuzu. Annoying assassin. Be careful, Ka-san. I sense Kakuzu ahead, he obviously wants to fight. You take Sasuke, and I will take care of that zombie. Kushina nodded, and they disappeared rapidly through the forest. Naruto concentrated, tracing Sasuke's and Kakuzu's chakra periodically, wanting to make sure that they were at the same place. It was barely half an hour later that Naruto and his mother found themselves at a gorge, interestingly devoid of trees. Naruto spied Kakuzu on the water with a container that undoubtedly held Sasuke. He could feel the young Uchiha's dormant chakra. He appeared in front of Kakuzu, Kushina behind him. Kakuzu turned around to face him. Naruto grinned, feeling a strange merging of consciousnesses in Kakuzu. It appeared as if he had gotten himself more hearts. You are here at last, Uzumaki Naruto. I was wondering if our plan would work. It did, said Kakuzu. Kushina disappeared, only to appear at the top of the gorge with Sasuke's container. Kakuzu made no move to stop her, he was staring at Naruto too intently. You can have Sasuke, if you want, he is of no concern to me. Perhaps if his bounty were higher, but I digress. Your bounty will make me rich for a long, long time. So, show me what you can do with the Mokuton. Show me if you really can match Hashirama, said Kakuzu in a tone of bored challenge. Naruto frowned at him. I am Hashirama, you fool. It seems those hearts of yours have dulled your instinct. One for each nature, You want to kill me? Is that why you kidnapped Sasuke? I thought the Akatsuki wanted my Biju. Asked Naruto curiously. Kakuzu shook his head as Kushina watched them converse. Kyuubi will reform later, if we kill you now. We can capture that mindless beast easily at our leisure. And your bounty will fund me for a long time. I have fought the Yondaime Hokage, and have lived to tell the tale. Die, Uzumaki Naruto. You are but a pretender, an imitator. At this, Kakuzu's tentacles of hair drilled into the earth, shooting out to capture Naruto, who watched on amusedly. At the last second he dodged a hair tentacle that would have torn him apart, and caught two others with his bare hands. With a yell, he flung Kakuzu by his hair right into the wall of the gorge, quite a distance away. I will end this now, you heartless monster, said Naruto with a grin. Sutten, Mizu no Dangan. The waters of the gorge boiled, and multiple drills of water shot out of the gorge, all converging towards Kakuzu's crater in a cone. Each of them as thick as the trunk of a full-grown man. Naruto winced slightly as he saw the water jets drill into Kakuzu's location. He saw the wall crumble slightly at the pressure of his technique. Abruptly, the wall of the gorge exploded in a hail of fire, and he saw Kakuzu's body being stitched back by that horrendous hair of his. Beside him, however, were three monstrous masked beings of black, each with a nature very strong in them. Raiden, Futon, and Katon. This will be quite the fight, thought Naruto as he saw one monster open its mask to show a forming ball of fire. Another mask opened to reveal a gathering ball of wind. Naruto readied his own technique as he watched Kakuzu, now fully stitched back, yell out his technique. Katon Kaji Arishi. Naruto faced the incoming wall of fire, fed and sustained by the wind technique. It was so huge, huge enough to swallow up the entire gorge and hot enough to evaporate the water. The waters rumbled once more as trees were born in its depths. Naruto slammed his pals together, yelling out his counter technique. Mokuton, Shinboku no Tobichi. Finish this fast, Naruto thought Kushina as she watched a veritable forest blast through the gorge waters, seemingly born in its depths. How tall were those trees? She watched as the multitudes of trees grew to monstrous proportions and rushed forward to oppose the incoming storm of fire. Fire met forest in a huge explosion. Naruto watched gleefully as the force of his wood release carried the firestorm back to that old assassin. When forest meets fire, it results in a forest fire, you idiot, and I control the forest. I will bury you today, Kakuzu. Dead or alive, I will bury you. That's it for part 6. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.